A cure for the doom scroll. Well, that escalated quickly, I said out loud. The sound of my own voice shocked me, as it had been a while since I heard anyone's voice. Then I laughed. As I stumbled along the urban wasteland that downtown had become, I realized it had been roughly a month since I laughed. So I needed a good laugh. And it had escalated quickly. Where was that quote from? A popular movie from years ago. It gained immortality from the meme created from it. Remember memes? Jesus, I don't even know who I'm talking to right now. Probably nobody. Let alone anybody who remembers memes. Maybe you remember when phone batteries died after 8 hours? I thought those million-year solar batteries were the greatest invention of all time. Batteries powered by sunlight and auto-recharged over Wi-Fi. Good God. Between that and durability improvements, these phones could simply never die. One thing is for sure, unless there's a spot on planet Earth that has people and doesn't have cell phones, these phones are going to outlive all of us. I stumbled along, legs aching, walking for hours without seeing a single living soul who wasn't completely still, staring at their phone. All with that same stupid grin on their face. Notice I said living, but I have seen. I hate to call them corpses or cadavers. Let's call them previously alive people. Paps. Plenty of paps, mixed in with the currently alive people. The sunset increased the effect of the screen's light, giving everyone an eerie, underlit look. On park benches, apartment building staircases, seated crisscross applesauce on the hoods of cars. You get the idea. It was actually tough to tell the living from the non-living right now. On some paps, rigor mortis had done its thing, and now they were frozen in the same position they were in during the last days of their lives. I thought of the citizens of Pompeii when Vesuvius erupted, frozen by lava doing whatever it was they were in the process of doing. But at least the people of Pompeii had some variety in their activities. Cooking, gardening, sweeping the floor. But these people around me now, they were just staring at their phones. Even the indoor ones I couldn't see. I knew they were all doing the same thing, whether sitting at home, in their cars, at the train station, inside the stores, coffee shops, restaurants. In a sense, they were all a bunch of lifeless bodies, all hunched over their phones. It had been a little while since it started, so the first of the paps had begun to collapse. Their heads rested on their chests now, if not a table or a steering wheel or whatever they sat in front of. At least they died happy, I thought. And this was true as long as you believe everything you hear on the news. And I believed this tidbit. It seemed to explain why this happened, and happened so fast. One morning not too long ago, I was making breakfast when I caught this report on TV. The start of what virologists were calling a pandemic. Now I'm from a generation of people who experienced, once-in-a-century pandemics every 10 years or so. So hearing this didn't really ring any alarm bells for me. Meh. Another pandemic, I thought. Put on your masks. Social distance. Work from home. But this was not your grandparents' pandemic. The virus, the stone-faced news anchor said, is not carried through the air, through touch, or through fluids. A dramatic pause. It is carried through your cell phone. I felt a chill. But as we said, you don't catch it by touch, the anchor continued. It's a virus that enters your brain through the latest viral video. No pun intended. From there, the news report began showing people sitting in various places, staring at their phones, completely focused, unable to look away. They all wore the same expression, too. It was that of, how can I put it? Buddha is the closest I can come to describing the expression. They all looked enlightened. A street reporter continued in voiceover. You may have heard of it. The video is called A Cure for the Doom Scroll, and it in the last 72 hours has garnered over 3 billion views. It may seem innocuous enough at first, but it creates an immediate and very powerful addiction. Viewers replay it over and over again, choosing to rewatch the video over anything else, sleeping, eating, even sex. The news cut to one of those virologists who could not hide a mixture of amazement and horror. Whoever made this video has unlocked something in the human brain which we never thought possible. It gives the brain the ability to recycle dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin indefinitely. On this video, the brain has become a perpetual happiness machine. Nothing. No drug, no alcohol. No food, gambling, pornography. Nothing can compete with this level of. He appeared at a loss for words, then finally found 3. Sheer unadulterated joy. The news cut back to the people staring at their phones. This particular group was in an airport waiting area. They were standing, sitting, or laying perfectly still. They did not interact with each other at all. They were completely silent. Though most of them wore earbuds which silenced their phones, there was audio, but the audio sounded tinny, altered. A security officer tried to get the people to move, having no luck at all. 2 more security officers stood close by, but they were also looking at their phones. Once or twice the news camera would pick up a phone screen, but the image was pixelated. The reporter's voiceover continued. For viewer protection, we are not going to show the video and caution viewers to resist searching it out, and if someone sends you the video file, delete it immediately. Because once you open the file, there is no getting rid of it. Government agencies have been able to delete the source video from its server, but apparently it is too late. It contains a Trojan horse that causes your phone to automatically download it and send it to everyone on your contact list. At this point, there are billions of copies of this video worldwide. As if things couldn't get more disturbing, the street reporter attempted to interview several of the cell phone watchers, sticking her microphone in their faces, asking them questions about the video. All were unresponsive. They just kept their gaze on their phone screens. Frustrated, the reporter waved her hand in front of one gentleman's eyes, and he reacted like she had hit him. He glared at her angrily, shoved her away, then went back to his phone and started to smile again. The reporter noticed a nearby police car and went up to it to report what had just happened to her. There were 2 police officers inside. Both stared at their cell phones. They did not even acknowledge the reporter. Now, the stone-faced news anchor spoke from the studio once again. If you have not heard from a friend or family member in the last 72 hours, now would be the time to check on them. If they have watched this video, they may be in need of medical attention. Though we warn you to call 911. Don't try to intervene. As you can see, people who are disturbed while watching it may become violent. I have a wife and kid. I haven't heard from either since I saw that news report. My daughter had just gone to Miami for spring break a few days before. My wife was already at work that morning. Suddenly I got 2 notifications on my phone, one right after the other. The first from my daughter, the second from my wife. A cure for the doom scroll. Check out this viral video. Oh no. Panicking, I immediately deleted the file attachments. Then I tried to call first my daughter, then my wife. But every call went straight to voicemail, and every text was delivered but unread. All of a sudden. I think the video hijacks your phone and blocks all notifications, guaranteeing uninterrupted viewing pleasure. I don't think you can even power your phone down. I was supposed to have dinner with my wife downtown that day. I made the reservation and everything. I tried calling her office. Once again, voicemail. Everybody was out of the office. So I drove downtown to her work. Traffic was already getting bad. People just stopped their cars in the street so they could watch the video. I heard a couple of fender benders, a couple of horn blasts. But no yelling afterward. Drivers just stayed in their cars. I got within a few blocks of her building when my car got gridlocked for good. Cars on every side of me. In each one the same thing. A driver just staring at their phone, same blank stare on their faces. Some cars had passengers who'd also fell under the spell of that video. I gave up and just got out of my car. They could tow it for all I cared. When I got onto the sidewalk, heading for my wife's office building, it hit me. I looked out at the sea of cars congesting the city streets. All this traffic and not one beep. Nobody was honking their horns at all. At this point, there were people sitting on the sidewalks, in bus stops, leaning up against anything available, walls, streetlights, trash cans. All watching their phones. If I got close enough, I could hear the video. There were no words, no music. There was just this munching noise. Munch, munch, munch. That's when the second thing hit me. None of these people was talking. Not on their phones, not to each other. The city was becoming quieter and quieter every minute that went by. I got my phone out and attempted to call my wife again. Voicemail. I was just about to leave a message when I saw him coming at me. It was a very large man power walking toward me, staring down at his own phone. It seemed he didn't see me, and when I tried to maneuver around him, he pivoted in the same direction, running into me. It all happened so fast. His phone dropped from his hands, and he accidentally kicked it, right into an open manhole. "Hey, I'm sorry, buddy," I started. The man glared at me with an insane panic I have never seen before. He immediately locked on my phone and reached for it. "Hey, dude." I protested, pulling my phone out of his reach. He immediately grabbed my neck in his large hand and squeezed. He said nothing. I surrendered my phone on the spot. He let me drop to the ground gasping and took my phone and his large hands. His sausage fingers went to work as extreme concentration was etched into his features. He quickly maneuvered to what I can only assume is the video. He knew exactly where to find it. His features relaxed into a grin, and he stood there above me, absolutely still. I heard that telltale noise coming from my own phone now. Munch, munch, munch. I got up, still in shock, able to breathe again. I left the large man and continued the rest of the way to my wife's building. Weird day, huh? The security guard asked, looking past me as I walked into my wife's office building. You noticed, I tried to joke. There was no one at the front desk. I heard the security guard call out from behind me. She said she'd be right back. But that was about a half hour ago. Was she looking at her cell phone? I asked. The security guard shrugged. Isn't everybody these days? My wife works on the 18th floor full flight marketing, I said, telling the guard her name. Is it okay if I go up? The guard shrugged again. Yeah, just sign in. I noticed the sheet on the front desk and signed my name. About 3 minutes later, I was on the 18th floor. Full flight marketing. I walked into the office area. The receptionist had her back turned to me and did not respond to my entrance whatsoever. I noticed the hunch in her back and didn't need to wonder why. I could hear the faint audio coming from the video. Munch, munch, munch. I decided to bypass any interaction. I knew I had to be buzzed in, but I went up to the receptionist's desk and quickly found the button that unlocked the door to the main office area. I pressed it. The receptionist didn't even flinch at the buzzing noise. The main office of Full Flight Marketing was a vast array of cubicles. Thankfully, my wife had graduated to her own office. As I walked past the cubicles, I noticed workers sitting at their desks staring at their phone. I recognized some of them from company picnics, but none of them acknowledged me. I literally could not believe I was witnessing the seizure of a society in real time. They had become mannequins, eyes glued to this video playing over and over. I did not hear any munching this time, as everybody respected the company earbud policy. I got to her office and turned the handle. The door was locked. I peered in through the floor-to-ceiling window next to the door and saw someone sitting at my wife's desk. It was a younger woman, maybe an intern. Her elbows were on the desk, propping up the phone. The young woman's face was that mask of serenity I had come to loathe. Wait a minute. I looked closely at the phone. I could clearly see it was my wife's phone. She had the case custom made from a photo of her, my daughter and myself from a couple of years ago. I knocked on the glass. No response from the young woman sitting at my wife's desk. I pounded harder on the glass. I was getting angry. The young woman at my wife's desk with my wife's phone did not move. I finally gave it everything I got, and smash! The long window shattered. I jumped back, instinctively shouting sorry, watching the shards of glass fall into a pile on the floor. I looked around. Of course, nobody was reacting to this or any other loud, alarming noises I figured. I gingerly stepped over the glass and walked toward the young woman, whose eyes were still glued to my wife's phone, the faint munching noises coming from it. Hey! I shouted at her. No reaction from her at all. Nothing. I was done with all this. I slammed my hands on the desk in front of her. She briefly glanced up at me with sudden annoyance. Where's your boss? I asked, pointing to my wife's nameplate on the desk. But the young woman's gaze was already back on the phone that used to belong to my wife. God damn it! I shouted and was about to literally pull the phone from her hands. Then I smelled something. It was urine. I took a few steps back and peered under her desk. A pool of piss had gathered under her chair. I decided to leave the young woman in my wife's office with my wife's phone. I went over some quick scenarios and landed on a winner. My wife had walked away from her desk without her phone, but somehow intercepted someone who showed her the video. Maybe that's where she was right now, peering over someone else's shoulder, watching the video over and over again. I spent the rest of the afternoon scouring the offices of Full Flight Marketing, yelling my wife's name at the top of my lungs. I searched every cubicle, behind every office door, every broom closet. As I left the building, I noticed the security guard I met earlier was standing completely still, staring at his phone, grinning. He didn't notice me as I left. I didn't know it at the time, but he was the last person I would ever have a conversation with. By nightfall, I realized the world had stopped. It was surreal. Nothing moved. People scattered throughout the street were basked in the glow of their screens, looking like decorative lanterns. I was at a hotel about a block away from my wife's building. I planned on staying the night and continuing my search for her in the morning. Nobody was behind the reservation counter, of course. A big screen TV in the lobby was tuned to one of the 24-hour news channels. where presently a favorite news anchor sat behind the desk, staring at her phone. The program would automatically cut to commercial every once in a while. But when it cut back to the anchor, there she was completely silent, staring at her phone, Buddha's smile on her lips. I could not find anyone to help me. There were a few hotel employees in the kitchen, staring at their phones. When I asked for help, I got the usual response. Nothing. Vegetables were prepped on a counter. There was a chill from one of the cooler doors being opened. Thankfully, they hadn't started cooking anything yet. I hated to imagine the consequences of unattended stoves and ovens. Statistically, though, that had to be happening somewhere. Hopefully, city firefighters hadn't discovered a cure for the doom scroll. I was hungry, so I went into the hotel gift shop and grabbed a few things to eat. Of course, nobody was at the register. I left what little cash I had on the counter so as not to feel like a complete scumbag. Exhausted from walking the past few hours, I crashed on a couch in the hotel lobby. I thought of going behind the reservation desk and stealing a key card so I could use one of their rooms, but it seemed like too much work for the amount of energy I had left. I did not dream, but I slept very well. A solid 8 hours. Not even a bathroom break. I awoke very refreshed to the sun peeping in through the blinds. It was so quiet. There was no traffic noise. No hustle and bustle of the morning commuters outside. I ventured out and was immediately struck by the sounds of nature. Birds chirped. Dogs barked. There was a light breeze. As I looked around, I felt like I had stumbled into a massive art installation. It was eerily quiet. Nothing moved. Nobody moved. Some people were standing. Others now laid on the ground, phones to their faces. I cupped my hands over my mouth and yelled as loud as I could. "Hey!" I hollered into the stillness of the city. At first I thought someone had yelled back. Could it be another human who had not succumbed to a cure for the doom scroll? Alas, no. It was my own voice, echoing back from this urban canyon, surrounded by people in the middle of a dense city. But I might as well have been in the middle of nowhere. On my way back to my wife's office building, I saw my first previously alive person. An older man slunk against the outer wall of a construction zone. It looked like he'd been leaning against the wall, then slid down. His legs were splayed apart, his head raised to the sky, mouth gaping open. He was pale, eyes yellow, blue tongue bulging out. His phone was still clutched in one hand, which was at his side. That's how I knew he was no longer alive. He was no longer looking at his phone. I saw the shimmering light and heard the munching noise, so I know the video was still playing. Making sure not to look directly at the phone, I pulled it from his hand. Keeping it faced away, I buried the phone in my coat pocket, so I wouldn't have to listen to the munching. I was on a mission now. During my little walk back to my wife's building, I tried to imagine how the pap died. It could have been dehydration, or a heart attack, or maybe he had a serious medical condition and missed crucial doses of his life-saving meds because, munch, munch, munch. He was no longer with us either way, and I was able to snag a cell phone playing the video, because I had devised a plan. About 25 minutes later, I was on my wife's floor headed toward her office. As I passed through the cubicle area, I swore I saw the exact same people in the exact same places as yesterday. The sun had gone down and come up again, and they had all just sat there overnight. I giggled a little. I didn't like that I giggled. I mean, sure, this situation was absurd, but it was also absolutely horrifying. Giggling is not a good response when fear is needed. I saw the shattered floor-to-ceiling window up ahead, and when I got to it, I heard that munch, munch, munch coming from within. I climbed over the pile of broken glass. And sitting at my wife's desk, right where I left her, was the young woman who stole my wife's phone. Well, I don't know if she stole it. She may have found it. I tried not to think about how she had it, but she did. And now I was going to get it. The young woman was slumped over a little more. Her clothes were more wrinkled, and her makeup had started to run a little. Though she still smiled, her eyes were bloodshot. I wonder if she wore contacts. Unfortunately, the smell of urine had compounded. I had to hold my breath, but was also grateful she hadn't gone number 2 yet. I carefully plotted out my maneuver. First, I took out the pap's phone. There was that munching noise in stereo now. Careful not to move too quickly or too slowly, I simply put the pap's phone over my wife's phone, which the young woman was holding. Seeing the phone she was holding was being blocked, she instinctively dropped it and grabbed the pap's phone. Once again, careful not to look at the screen, I picked up my wife's phone and buried that in my pocket now. I don't know why I felt so much better that I had her phone, as if it was a nice consolation prize. In the days since that phone swap, I grabbed a public bicycle and went back to my house on the off chance I would find my wife there. Of course it was empty, but I couldn't help notice some of my neighbors in the yards and on the sidewalk standing there completely absorbed in their phones. I could not stay home for long, though. I felt this need to continue my search for her. In case she came back, I stuck a note on the fridge before I left. I haven't been back since. I don't know exactly how many days have gone by, but I have not given up the search for my wife. As for my daughter, I once had the thought of catching the next flight to Miami. I had her itinerary and everything. Maybe she would have been easier to locate. But plane travel had grinded to a halt in the hours following that fateful news broadcast. I imagine if there are any pilots left that haven't gone into that viral trance, they are being used for only the most extreme emergencies. That being said, I have not seen a plane in the sky in a very long time. I need to find my wife, and we can steal a camper, go on a road trip to Florida. Yeah, that's the ticket. Wending around these human statues who can't stop smiling at their phones, I have scoured every square inch of downtown for my wife. I take naps inside buildings on benches inside abandoned cars. When I'm hungry, I grab something from one of the many grocery stores that are open 24/7 now. Strictly packaged goods. I stay away from the fresh produce and meats since I saw a couple of raccoons pillaging a lettuce display. One of the store employees stood not 2 feet away from the pillaging raccoons, watching that video for the 100,000th time. The other night there was a downpour, and you'd think it would wake everyone outside from their collective trance. But no, it just caused all of them to hunch over so their phone screens wouldn't get wet. Time marches on. Men have begun to grow stubble. And women's makeup has run, to the point of looking like war paint. Every once in a while I catch my own reflection in a window. And every time it seems like I have aged 10 years. Though I do get plenty of sleep these days, I am tired. Every once in a while I take my wife's phone out and look at the family picture. Her, our daughter, and myself. I don't like taking the phone out because I can hear that munching noise. It's wearing on me, and I know why. The video is calling to me. It wants me to watch it. Just once, right? All I have to do is turn my wife's phone around and look at that screen. The other day, I walked past another previously alive person laying face up on the street corner. A rat gnawed at her bare ankle. She had dropped her phone, and it lay next to her. Against my better instincts, I caught a glimpse of the video. All I could see was a panda bear eating a bamboo stalk. Munch, munch, munch. I quickly looked away and wondered what the big deal was. That was the viral video. A panda bear munching on bamboo. Just now, a gust of wind brought the stench of decay. I dry heaved. The paps must outnumber the living by now. You know, the more I think about it, the more that panda bear's innocent face haunts me. I really want to watch that video now. I mean, it would certainly be a nice change from the past few weeks, months. I'm not sure anymore. And hey, if I succumb to it and what they say is true, at least I will die happy.